Hey, good morning. Good morning. It's your boy Josh. Listen, I want to first of all say thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Purpose Podcast. This morning, I want to talk to you about relationship. Believe it or not, a few years back, I actually got viral. I don't know if 10,000 views was viral, but to me, it was then. I was in college, and I did a video that's talked about if you are not married, you should not be shacking up. I don't know. I was saying something at that point, and it went viral, and everybody was going crazy. They were like, "Man, like this dude is like, what's wrong with him? Why is he talking about relationship and he in college?" And I know one of the things that really set people off was I said, if you are burning with passion, you should get married. And of course, as I've gotten older, I realized that burning with passion is not the only prerequisite to marriage. And so, of course, over time, my theology and my philosophy on that has really matured. I wouldn't necessarily say it has changed, but it has matured into a more depth of relationship. But relationships are something that I really love to talk about. I myself have been in a relationship for over 10 years now. I've been married and been with my wife, and we have a family, we have a child. I want to give you this background so you understand that this is not just some kind of random guy that is talking to you about relationships. I've written books on relationships. My first book, actually, I've written 13 books. My first book, titled She's the One, But You Are Not the One Yet, really did an amazing job. It sold at Walmart and sold all different parts of the world. And I've written books on conflict resolution. I've written books on discovering your value. And relationships is something that's so profound to me because relationship and purpose to me goes hand in hand. If you don't understand your purpose, you will not understand how to navigate relationship. I'm not going to be before you long, as an old preacher would say, but I want to give you five reasons, five signs that literally tells you that you need to leave him or her. Now, before I move on, I want to say when I say him or her, I'm talking about a relationship. When I say relationship, I'm talking about dating, courtship, whatever you may call it. This is not necessarily for the married couple, though it can be helpful. I'm going to do something for the married folks, but this is simply for those who are dating, more primarily focused on those who are dating. I want to give you five signs that it's time to move on. I think it's easy many times for us to get into a relationship. I think one of the things that's really hard that nobody ever talks about is how to get out of a relationship. I think it's so easy to get into anything. I mean, you can start anything. You can say, "Well, this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend," but what do you do when you want to get out? I think many times I dare would say that there are many people who are in relationships that they really should have gotten out of, but they're so afraid and so they stay in it. There's a term for it, which I would say toxic loyalty, where many times we stay in a relationship that we know we should have left a long time ago, but we are so afraid to leave. And so we'll rather remain in a toxic environment than leave. And so I want to give you five signs. This is not all five signs in the whole world and the whole universe, but this is just five signs from my personal encounters and personal experiences that I really believe can be generalized and could also help many people. So sit tight. I'm going to start with number one, and these are not in any particular order. But I want to give you number one. Number one sign that you need to leave him or her. Number one, the relationship started out of a need to fulfill a deficiency you had. Many times we hear things like "she completes me," "he completes me," and although that's kind of cute to say, it can be very toxic. The reason why it can be toxic is when somebody completes you in your mind, that means without them you are incomplete. And although that may seem like a cute thing, that is actually error, because what makes a relationship to function and to prosper is two whole people coming together to make one whole relationship. It's not two broken pieces that makes one. It is two ones that make one. And so if your relationship started from a need that you could not fulfill for yourself, that is number one sign that you may need to leave. That is a sign that possibly your relationship is a cover up to fulfill what you have never really chosen to tackle or to deal with. And so let's say you started a relationship out of have a feeling of loneliness. Maybe you were lonely at home and you're like, well, you know what? I just need to be with somebody because I'm lonely. That might be a sign that you need to leave and really get to date you to really feel that, deal with that loneliness. Maybe it stems from rejection, or maybe your relationship stems from anger or a feeling of of rejection, or maybe a feeling uh, 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 of of pain, and you're dealing with that stuff, and you're wondering, man, how the heck in the world am I going to deal with this? Maybe your relationship started from shame. Maybe you were ashamed that as a man or as a woman, you're like, man, I've been single for too long. It's about time I move on and find somebody. Maybe it's a shame. Maybe it's out of regret. Maybe it's out of a hope. Maybe you wanted to look good for somebody. Maybe it's out of pride. Maybe you wanted to show off. Whenever you have a relationship that starts from a deficiency that you have, the moment that deficiency is filled, you will either find somebody else to fill another part of your life, or you will always feel incomplete if you lose the individual. What makes a relationship work is two wholes coming together, not two halves, not one broken, one half, not one whole, one half. What makes it work is two whole people coming together to make it work. And so, number one, if the relationship started out of a need to fulfill a deficiency that you had, that's a sign that you may need to leave so you can heal, be whole before you enter the relationship. All right. Number two, if there was any form of abuse involved in the relationship. I'm a firm believer of forgiving, especially if it's verbal abuse or whatever it may be, but any form of abuse. Abuse is simply an abnormal use of a thing. If you or your partner is abnormally using the time, abnormally using their words, many times it is a sign or an indicator that your use is done. Whenever you find an abnormal use, that means that person no longer values what he or she has. You abuse what you don't value. And so if you find yourself in a place where you are being abused, abnormally used, it is a sign and an indicator that your value may not exist anymore. And it'll be sign for you to leave. Why? Because abuse multiplies. Abuse has a compound interest. When you don't have a understanding of how to use a thing, you will constantly misuse it, abuse it till you destroy it. It's almost like giving a child a car to drive. When the child does not understand how that car works, what ends up happening is the child will keep abnormally using the car until eventually positioning him or her in a place where they can either harm themselves or destroy the car. Sign number two, if there was abuse, any form of abuse involved in a relationship, you got to go. Number three, there was cheating involved and a complete lack of trust. One of the key things that keep any relationship going is trust. You see, trust actually has a definition. Trust is defined as consistency over time. Whenever there is no trust in a relationship, the relationship doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You cannot say a relationship exists and trust does not exist in it. What makes the relationship work is the trust. Trust is that glue that keeps two people together. So sometimes I hear people say things like, yeah, we're together, but I don't trust her. I don't trust him. Then if there's no trust, there was no bond. And if there's no bond, there was no relationship. Trust is very critical. So if you have trust, a mistrust or cheating involved, it's a sign that you got to go. Number four, if there is constant unresolved conflict, it's the big one. When you have people who y'all literally never happy, you can't go a week without an argument. You can't go a month without a fight. You can't go a day without something. If you find out you're always dealing with constant unresolved conflict, I'm talking about you just can't have no peace of mind, for crying out loud. It's always something, always a fight. It's always a push. It's always this. It's always that. When you find that constant unresolved conflict, it's time to go, baby. It's time to say, you know what? I can't do this no more. I can't do this no more. It's time to go. Constant unresolved conflict. If you can't just seem to come to a resolve, if you don't have enough love and respect for each other to say, I'm sorry, I forgive you, it could be a sign that y'all probably tired of each other. Constant unresolved conflict is a huge indicator that it's time to move on. All right. Let me give you one last one. I'm going to get out your way. One last one. There is no God in the relationship. You see, when you find yourself in a relationship where you or your partner starts to pull the other person away from God in the relationship, that's a huge sign that it's time to go. If your partner pulls you away from God, it is a huge sign that it's time to go. If, let's say, you were somebody who loved God and you were passionate about God and you showed up to church and you were doing everything you need to do to serve God, and then all of a sudden you get into a relationship and now you don't even want to go to church and now you don't want to do nothing, that might be a huge sign that it's time to go. God would not give you anyone that will pull you away from Him. Let me say that one more time. God will not give you anyone that will pull you away from Him. I'm going to say it one last time so it hits your spirit. God ain't going to give you anyone that will pull you away from Him. That might be a sign that it's time to go. These are 5 signs. I want to hear what you think. If this blessed you, I want you to share this. I want you to actually comment and tell me, what would you like me to talk about? What topics would you want to hear? If this blessed you, I want you to share it. I can't wait to see you next time on the Purpose Podcast. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.